anterior abdominal wall. The abdomen is the region of the body that is located between the diaphragm above and pelvic inlet below. It is divided into 9 quadrants by 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. The 2 vertical lines drawn at the level of number 1 is the mid-clavicular point superiorly at the mid-inguinal point inferior. Here are the 2 vertical lines which are drawn superiorly at the level of mid-clavicular point and inferiorly at the level of mid-inguinal point. Here is the inguinal ligament which extends from the anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. The midpoint of that ligament is the mid-inguinal point. So vertical plane extending from mid-clavicular line to the mid-inguinal point. There are 2 vertical lines and there are 2 horizontal lines. Number 1, subcostal edge superiorly and right and left iliac tubercle inferiorly. So horizontal lines are these: subcostal edges superiorly and the right and left iliac tubercle. Here are the right and left iliac tubercle inferiorly. Here are the right and left iliac tubercle inferiorly. So here are 4 lines, 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines which divide the abdomen into 9 quadrants. So these are the region. This is the epigastric region in the middle from above downward, epigastric region, umbilical region, and below is the pubic region. And on right and left side there is right hypochondriac region, left hypochondrium region, right flank, left flank, and right groin and the left groin. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 quadrants which are formed by the 2 vertical and 2 horizontal lines. The anterior abdominal wall is made up of skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, muscles, extraperitoneal fascia, and the parietal peritoneum. So these are the layers of the anterior abdominal wall. First is the skin, then is the superficial fascia, which having 2 layers: superficial fatty layer, which is known as the Camper's fascia, and deep membranous layer, which is known as the Scarpa's fascia. Then is the investing fascia, that is the superficial, intermediate, and deep. Here are the muscular layer, that is the external oblique muscle, internal oblique muscle, and transversus abdominal muscle. And then is the extraperitoneal fat, and last is the parietal peritoneum. Between the extraperitoneal fat and the muscular layer there is fascia transversalis, and last is the parietal peritoneum. So these are the layer one by one: skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, muscular layer, extraperitoneal fat, and parietal peritoneum. The structure of the abdominal wall from outside to inside is the skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, muscle, and extraperitoneal fascia, and parietal peritoneum. So first is, here is the skin, then deep to the skin there is superficial fascia. Superficial fascia having 2 layers. This is the superficial layer of the superficial fascia, that is the fatty layer, which is known as Camper's fascia. And second is the deep layer, that is the membranous layer of the superficial fascia, that is known as the Scarpa's fascia. Skin, superficial layer of the superficial fascia, and deep layer of the superficial fascia. Then is the muscular layer, that is the external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis muscle. Then is the fascia transversalis or transversalis fascia. Then is the extraperitoneal fascia, and next is the parietal peritoneum. So these are the layers one by one on the anterior abdominal wall. First of all, we discuss about the skin. Skin is loosely attached to the underlying structure except at the umbilicus, where it is tethered to a scar tissue. The umbilicus is a scar representing the site of the attachment of the umbilical cord in the fetus, and it is situated in the linea alba. So here is the center line that is known as linea alba. In the center of the linea alba there is a scar which is known as the umbilicus, which is present in the skin. Next is the superficial fascia. Superficial fascia is divided into two layers, superficial fatty layer and deep membranous layer. Superficial fatty layer is the fascia of Kemper, and deep membranous layer is known as the Scarpa's fascia. The superficial fascia, which having two layers, the superficial fatty layer, that is the Kemper's fascia, it is continue with the superficial fat over the rest of the body. And in the scrotum, it is modified as a thin, smooth muscular layer called the dartos muscle. So, these are the layers we have already discussed. Superficial fatty layer, which is continue with the fat of the other parts of the body, and in the penis it is continue with the dartos muscle. And superficial fatty layer, the membranous layer of the superficial fascia. Below the umbilicus, it is continue with the callus fascia in the perineum. Next is the deep membranous layer, that is the Scarpa's fascia. In the midline inferiorly, the membranous layer of the fascia is not attached to the pubis, but it forms a tubular sheath for the penis or the clitoris. Below the perineum, it enters the wall of the scrotum. From there, it passes to be attached on each side to the margin of the pubic arch, and here it is referred to as the callus fascia. So, this is the membranous layer of the superficial fascia, and here is the callus fascia. The attachment of membranous layer of the superficial fascia and the callus fascia of the perineum in such a way that it restricts the extravasated urine into the upper abdomen or into the ischiorectal fossa or into the thigh due to the rupture of the urethra. If there is rupture of urethra, the passage of urine prevent by the attachment of these two layers, that is the membranous layer of the superficial fascia or Scarpa's layer or the callus fascia of the perineum. These two layers prevent the passage of urine upward into the ischiorectal fossa and downward into the thigh. So here is the Scarpa's layer. Here is the Holden's line. Here is the pubic tubercle. 8 cm lateral to the pubic tubercle there is the Holden's lines, and below there is the pubic tubercle. Here is the body of the pubis and margins of the pubic arch. Here is the attachments of this Scarpa's layer. Next is the deep fascia. It is a thin layer of connective tissue covering the muscle. It lies immediately deep to the membranous layer of the superficial fascia. Next is the nerve supply of the superficial fascia. The nerve of the anterior abdominal wall are the anterior rami of the lower 6 thoracic and the first lumbar nerves. The thoracic nerve are lower 5 intercostal nerve and the subcostal nerve. First lumbar nerve is represented by the iliohypogastric, ilioinguinal and branches of the lumbar plexus. They supply the skin of the anterior abdominal wall, the muscles and the parietal peritoneum. The lower 6 thoracic nerve pierces the posterior wall of the rectus sheath to supply the rectus muscle and the pyramidalis. So here are the branches of the nerves. These are the anterior cutaneous branches from T7 to T12, and these are the lateral cutaneous branches from T7 to T12. The oblique and transversus abdominis muscle are supplied by the lower 6th thoracic nerve and the iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerve. The rectus muscle is supplied by the lower 6th thoracic nerve. Pyramidalis is supplied by the 12th thoracic nerve. The dermatome of the abdominal wall lies at the level of xiphoid process, that is at the T7, at the level of umbilicus, that is T10, and at the level of pubis, that is at the level of L1. So here are the dermatomes of the abdomen, that is at the level of T7, umbilicus at the level of T10, and at the level of L1. Next is the blood supply. The skin near the midline is supplied by the branches of the superior and inferior epigastric arteries. So in the midline there are two main arteries, that is the superior epigastric artery and the inferior epigastric artery. And skin of the flank, that is on lateral side, is supplied by the intercostal arteries, lumbar arteries and deep circumflex iliac arteries. The superior epigastric artery is the one of the terminal branch of the internal thoracic artery and enter the upper part of the rectus sheath. It descends behind the rectus muscle, supplying the upper central part of the anterior abdominal wall and anastomosis with the inferior epigastric artery. Next is the inferior epigastric artery, which is a branch of external iliac artery just above the inguinal ligament. The rectus muscle, it supplies the lower central part of the anterior abdominal wall and anastomosis with the superior epigastric artery. Next is the deep circumflex iliac artery, which is a branch of external iliac artery just above the inguinal ligament. It supplies the lower lateral part of the abdominal wall. The lower two posterior intercostal artery are the branches of descending thoracic aorta, and four lumbar artery, which are the branches of the abdominal aorta, passes forward between the muscular layer and supply the lateral part of the abdominal wall. So here is the blood supply, medial part by the superior epigastric and inferior epigastric, which is superior epigastric is a branch of internal thoracic and inferior is a branch of external iliac artery. Intercostal branches of the abdominal aorta, lumbar are the branches of the abdominal aorta, and deep circumflex artery is a branch of the external iliac artery. Next is the venous drainage. Venous drainage is into two headings, superficial vein and deep vein. Superficial vein form a network that radiate out from the umbilicus. Above the network is drained into the axillary vein via lateral thoracic vein and below into the femoral vein via superficial epigastric and into the great saphenous vein. And deep vein of the abdominal wall, that is the superior epigastric, inferior epigastric, deep circumflex iliac vein, follow the artery of the same name and drain into the internal thoracic and external iliac vein. So here are the veins which form a network at the level of the umbilicus. Above the umbilicus, they go upward into the lateral thoracic and axillary vein, and downward below the umbilicus goes into the superficial epigastric veins. These are the superficial veins. Next is the lymphatic. Lymphatic in the region above the umbilicus drain into the axillary lymph node, which can be palpated just beneath the lower border of the pectoralis major muscle. Lymphatics in the region below the umbilicus drain into the superficial inguinal nodes, and deep lymph vessel follow the artery drain into the internal thoracic, external iliac, posterior mediastinal and para-aortic nodes. So at the level of the umbilicus, the veins and lymphatic, they form a watershed line. They don't cross. The veins and the lymphatic don't cross this watershed line. Above the level passes upward and below the level passes downward. Next is the muscle. So we have discussed about the skin, superficial fascia and deep fascia. In the skin there is umbilicus and superficial fascia which having two layers, superficial fatty layer and deep membranous layer. And next is the deep fascia which lie beneath the deep membranous layer of the Scarpa's fascia. And we have discussed about the blood supply, lymphatic drainage, venous drainage of the skin. Next we have discussed about the fourth layer, that is the muscles of the anterior abdominal wall. The muscles of the anterior abdominal wall is the external oblique muscle, internal oblique muscle, transversus abdominis and the rectus abdominis muscle. And later we have discussed about the extraperitoneal fascia and parietal peritoneum. So, muscles. Muscles of the anterior abdominal wall consist of three broad thin sheets: external oblique, internal oblique and transversus abdominis. These are from exterior to the anterior. So the muscles of the anterior abdominal wall are three broad thin sheets that are aponeurotic in front from exterior to anterior. On the either side of the midline, anteriorly is in addition a wide vertical muscle, that is the rectus abdominis muscle. As the aponeurosis of three sheet passes forward, they enclose the rectus abdominis to form the rectus sheath. So there are three main muscles: external oblique, internal oblique and transversus abdominis. And in the midline center there is rectus abdominis. Aponeurosis of these three muscles, external oblique, internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscle, aponeurosis of all these three muscles enclose the central muscle, that is the rectus abdominis muscle, to form the rectus sheath. The lower part of the rectus sheath contains a small muscle that is called the pyramidalis. So there are main three muscles, that is the external oblique, internal oblique, transversus abdominis. Aponeurosis enclose the central muscle rectus abdominis which form the rectus sheath, and in the lower part of the rectus sheath there may be presence of a small muscle, that is the pyramidalis. So first is the external oblique muscle. So here is the origin, insertion, direction and nerve supply of the external oblique. The external oblique muscle, it arises from the external surfaces and inferior border of the lower 5 to 12 ribs with the serratus anterior and latissimus dorsi, and insert into the iliac crest, linea alba and forms the inguinal ligament. The direction of the fibers of the external oblique is directed downward, anteriorly and inferiorly, and it is supplied by T7 to L1. So here is the direction of the fibers of the external oblique muscle which arise from the lower ribs with having the lower fibers of the serratus anterior and upper fibers of the latissimus dorsi, and insert into the iliac crest, linea alba and forming the inguinal ligament. This external oblique muscle, it ends in the form of a aponeurosis. This aponeurosis attached into iliac crest, linea alba and form the inguinal ligament. The most lower fibers, they attach directly into the iliac crest, and these upper and middle fiber attached or insert in the form of aponeurosis. The aponeurosis of external oblique muscle folded upon itself from anterior superior iliac spine through the pubic tubercle to form the inguinal ligament. There is a triangular shaped gap or defect in the external oblique aponeurosis that lie immediately above and medial to the pubic tubercle, that is known as the superficial inguinal ring. So here is the superficial inguinal ring. There is the external oblique muscle, and here is the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle. In the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle, there is a triangular gap. This triangular gap is known as the superficial inguinal ring. The spermatic cord or round ligament of uterus passes through this opening and carry the external spermatic fascia from the margins of the ring, or the external covering of the round ligament of the uterus. So content of the superficial inguinal ring is the spermatic cord or round ligament of the uterus. From the medial end of the ligament, so here is the inguinal ligament, which is formed by the folding of the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle. From the medial end of the ligament, the lacunar ligament extends backward and upward to the pectineal line, lies on the superior ramus of the pubis. So this is the triangular gap. In the aponeurosis of the external oblique, this triangular gap is known as superficial inguinal ring, which is occupied by spermatic cord or round ligament of the uterus. Next is the same superficial inguinal ring. Here is the triangular opening in the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle, whose base is formed by the pubic crest. Superior crest is attached to the pubic crest and inferiorly to the pubic tubercle, and external spermatic fascia arise from its margins. Between the anterior superior iliac spine. Next is the inguinal ligament. What is inguinal ligament? Between the anterior superior iliac spine and pubic tubercle, the lower border of the aponeurosis is folded backward on itself, forming the inguinal ligament. So here is the inguinal ligament, which is formed by the lower border of the aponeurosis. And what is the superficial inguinal ring? That is a triangular opening in the aponeurosis in the lower part. And what is inguinal ligament? That is formed by the folding of the aponeurosis from anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. These two are separate. Superficial inguinal ring is a gap in the aponeurosis, and inguinal ligament is the folding of the aponeurosis from anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. So here is the inguinal ligament, this thickened band. Here is the inguinal ligament from anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. Next is the internal oblique muscle. Internal oblique muscle is a broad, thin muscular sheet that lies deep to the external oblique muscle. It arises from the lumbar fascia, iliac crest, lateral two-thirds of the inguinal ligament, and inserts into the lower three ribs and their costal cartilages. Xiphoid process, linea alba, and pubic symphysis. And its nerve supply is by the lower sixth thoracic nerve, iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerve. And action, it supports the abdominal content, compress the abdominal content, assist in flexing and rotation of the trunk, and assist forced expiration, micturition, defecation, parturition, and vomiting. The direction of the external oblique is downward and forward, and direction of the fibers of the internal oblique is upward, forward, and medially. These two muscles cross to each other at right angle. So fiber of the internal oblique cross the fiber of the external oblique muscle at right angle. The lower fibers of the internal oblique are joined by the similar fiber of the transversus abdominis muscle to form the conjoint tendon. As the spermatic cord passes under the lower border of the internal oblique, it carries with it some of the muscle fiber that are called the cremaster muscle. So internal oblique muscle form the conjoint tendon and a small muscle that is the cremaster muscle. Conjoint tendon is formed by the joining of fibers of the transversus abdominis and internal oblique, and cremaster muscle is formed by the fiber which are carried with the spermatic cord and forming the cremaster muscle. Next is the transversus muscle. Thin sheet of the muscle that lie deep to the internal oblique, that is the transversus abdominis muscle. It arises from the lower 6 costal cartilages, lumbar fascia, iliac crest, lateral 2/3 of the inguinal ligament, and insert into the xiphoid process, linea alba and pubic symphysis. And its nerve supply is by the lower 6 thoracic nerve, T7 to T12, iliohypogastric ilioinguinal nerves, and action is it compresses the abdominal content. So here is the transversus abdominis muscle, which arises from thoracolumbar fascia, iliac crest, lateral half of the inguinal ligament and costal cartilages, and insertion into the xiphoid process, linea alba, pubic crest, pecten pubis and conjoint tendon. Direction is transverse, and nerve supply by T6 to L1. These are the direction of the transversus abdominis muscle. And next is the rectus abdominis muscle, which is the midline muscle, which is covered by the aponeurosis of 3 muscle, that is the external oblique, internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscle. The rectus abdominis muscle, it is the central muscle. It arises from the pubic crest and insert into the costal cartilages 5 to 7 and xiphoid process, and direction of the rectus abdominis is vertical, and it is supplied by T7 to T11, and there is presence of tendinous intersection between the fibers of the rectus abdominis. The rectus abdominis is a long strap muscle that extends along the whole length of the anterior abdominal wall. It is broader above and lie close to the midline and being separated from its fellow by linea alba. There is a separation in between the 2 rectus abdominis, that is the right and left rectus abdominis, that is the linea alba. When rectus abdominis lateral margin form a curved ridge that can be palpated and often seen and is termed as the linea semilunaris. So medially there is linea alba and laterally there is linea semilunaris. This extends from the tip of the 9th costal cartilage to the pubic tubercle. The rectus abdominis muscle is divided into distinct segments by 3 transverse tendinous intersections at the level of xiphoid process, at the level of umbilicus, and at half between these 2, 1, 2 and 3. Here is the rectus abdominis muscle with the tendinous intersection in between them, xiphoid process, umbilicus, and in between these 2, here is the external oblique muscle, internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscle. These are the main muscles of the anterior abdominal wall. So in central there is the linea alba, which separate the 2 rectus abdominis. These in white color, these are the tendinous intersections, and here is a small muscle which is present just below the covering of the rectus abdominis, that is the rectus sheath, that is the pyramidalis. This is the pyramidalis muscle which arises from the anterior surface of the pubis, insert into the linea alba, and it is supplied by the 12th thoracic nerve, and it tends the linea alba. Here is the pyramidalis muscle, which is inconsistent muscle within the rectus sheath, arise from the pubic symphysis or pubic crest and insert into this white line, that is the linea alba, and it is supplied by the T12. It is not normally present, always present. That is the pyramidalis muscle. This is the external oblique muscle. We have already discussed about it. Next is the rectus sheath. So we have discussed about the skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia and muscular layer. Next is the rectus sheath, which is formed by the aponeurosis of the muscular layer which covering the central muscle, that is the rectus abdominis muscle. So rectus sheath rectus sheath, fibrous sheath that enclose the rectus abdominis muscle and pyramidalis muscle if it is present. It is formed by the aponeurosis of the three lateral abdominis muscle, that is the external oblique, internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscle. Rectus sheath, it's having two wall, anterior wall and posterior wall. Anterior wall is complete, which is formed by, it is complete from end to end. Its composition is variable and it is firmly adherent to the tendinous intersection of the rectus abdominis muscle, and complete and deficient above the costal margin and below the arcuate line. Its composition is variable and it is free from the rectus muscle. It's having a medial wall and lateral wall. Medially, it is formed by the fusion of all aponeurosis in the midline, so called the linea alba, and laterally it is called the linea semilunaris, which extends from the tip of the 9th costal cartilage to the pubic buccal. The formation of the rectus sheath is above the costal margin by the formation of the rectus sheath above the costal margin. The anterior is deficient and rectus muscle directly on the 5th, 6th costal. Between the costal margin and arcuate line, the anterior wall is formed by external oblique aponeurosis, anterior lamina of the aponeurosis of the internal oblique, and posterior wall is by the posterior lamina of the transversus abdominis muscle. And midway between the umbilicus and the pubic symphysis, the posterior wall of the rectus sheath and in the arcuate or linea semilunaris or the fold of Douglas. Next is the below the arcuate line, the anterior wall is formed by the aponeurosis of all three flat muscles. The aponeurosis of the transversus and the internal oblique are fused, but the external oblique aponeurosis remains separate. The posterior wall is deficient and the rectus abdominis muscle rests directly on the fascia transversalis. Next is the content of the rectus sheath. The muscular content of the rectus sheath is the rectus muscle and the pyramidalis muscle, and superior epigastric vessels, inferior epigastric vessels, lower 5 intercostal vessels and the nerves. So next is the functions of the anterior abdominal wall muscles. The oblique laterally flex and rotate the trunk. The rectus abdominis flex the trunk and stabilize the pelvis. The pyramidalis keeps the linea alba tense or taut during the process. The muscle of the Anterior and lateral abdominal wall assist the diaphragm during inspiration by relaxing as the diaphragm descends so that the abdominal viscera can be accommodated. The muscle assists in act of forced expiration that occurs during coughing and sneezing by pulling down the ribs and the sternum. Their tone plays important part in supporting and protecting the abdominal viscera by contracting simultaneously with the diaphragm. With the glottis of the larynx closed, they increase the intra-abdominal pressure and help in micturition, defecation, vomiting and parturition. Next is the fascia transversalis. So we have discussed about the skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, muscular layer and functions of the different muscles of the anterior abdominal wall. Next is the fascia transversalis. The fascia transversalis is a thin layer of fascia that lie in the transversus abdominis muscle. Next is the deep inguinal ring, an oval opening that is 2.5 cm above the middle of the inguinal ligament, which extending from the anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. There is an oval opening above the middle of the inguinal ligament that is known as the deep inguinal ring. The inferior epigastric artery passes medial to the ring. So, the fascia transversalis lies deep to the transversus abdominis muscle, and in the fascia transversalis there is an oval opening that is the deep inguinal ring. Medial to that there is passage of the inferior epigastric artery. Next is the extraperitoneal fat. The extraperitoneal fat is a thin layer of the connective tissue that contain a variable amount of fat and lies between the fascia transversalis and the parietal peritoneum. So here is the extraperitoneal fat and next is the parietal peritoneum. The walls of the abdomen are lined with the parietal peritoneum. This is a thin serous membrane and is continued below with the parietal lining of the pelvis. So this is all about the 6 layers of the anterior abdominal wall: skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, muscular layer, fascia and extraperitoneal fat, and last is the parietal peritoneum. Thank you.